Today in Cannabis News, a Republican state legislator in Michigan seeks to implement cannabis intoxication limits for vehicle operators. Despite stringent cannabis restrictions for White House staff, Capitol Hill aides in nearby offices are seemingly able to consume cannabis and found a smoke spot outside of the DNC HQ. And a bipartisan group of federal legislators call for measures in the forthcoming annual budget bill that would shield all state, territory, and tribal cannabis programs from federal intervention. It's Friday, April 30th, and this is your TRICHOMES Morning Buzz.
Broadcasting live from the TRICHOMES.com studios in Southern California. It's time for your Morning Buzz. We bring you late-breaking news that keeps you up to date with what's happening in the cannabis industry.
First up, the Detroit Free Press reports that a Republican state legislator in Michigan wants to define how much of the intoxicating compound in cannabis must be present in one's bloodstream to be considered a vehicle operating risk. Representative Pamela Hornberger proposed a contentious bill this week that goes against the guidelines of a state commission established by former Governor Rick Schneider to study the connection between THC blood levels and impairment. Based on the total body of knowledge presently available, the Commission finds there is no scientifically supported threshold of THC bodily content that would be indicative of impaired driving due to the fact that there is a poor correlation between driving impairment and the blood plasma levels of THC at the time of blood collection, wrote the Impaired Driving Safety Commission in its final report in 2019. In Michigan, recreational cannabis is legal, and driving while inebriated is prohibited. However, cannabis inebriation is not classified the same as with alcohol. HB 4727 seeks to establish a comparable limit for cannabis inebriation of a maximum of 5 nanograms per milliliter of blood.
And next up, in Washington, D.C., there appears to be a double standard in cannabis restrictions. Despite President Joe Biden's administration's stringent cannabis policies, Capitol Hill aides in nearby offices insist they had no trouble consuming cannabis and getting hired. In President Biden's White House, using cannabis is a violation that could result in job termination, but many powerful people on Capitol Hill can without consequence. Since most congressional aides are never questioned about their cannabis consumption, they smoke or eat edibles without fear of losing their employment. When recruited for a committee-level position in the Senate, nobody required them to undergo a drug screening, a former senior Republican staffer told Business Insider, adding that they were shocked because working previously at minimum wage jobs, such as at movie theaters and retail stores, all required drug screenings. Many Hill employees use cannabis to hang out with colleagues, relieve stress in a ruthless and fiercely competitive environment where 12-plus-hour days aren't unusual, or after the annoyance of needing to work late on Friday evenings. A past Democratic employee said that they saw cannabis edible packaging thrown away in garbage cans on Capitol Hill and heard that some venture outside of the Democratic National Committee headquarters to a smoke spot that is technically not on federal grounds. The culture on the Hill is that it happens and it's done, but nobody says anything about it, said the former aide, who requested to remain anonymous.
Last up, a bipartisan group of several federal legislatures in the U.S. Congress sent a letter to the leadership of a prominent committee this week compelling them to include provisions in the forthcoming annual budget bill that would shield all state, territory, and tribal cannabis systems from federal intervention. The letter, written by Representatives Earl Blumenauer and Barbara Lee, co-chairs of the Congressional Cannabis Caucus, highlights the rising number of states that have legalized medical and/or recreational cannabis, and insists that the Department of Justice should be restricted from enforcing prohibition against people who follow state statutes. If proposed provisions are accepted, it would be expected to pass the House as a component of the broader funding legislation. This year, Democrats also hold a majority in the Senate, which means the more expansive clause protecting states with recreational regulations will have a better probability of being included in the final version sent to the president. Only the medical cannabis safeguards have been added to the final appropriations bill within previous GOP control. However, Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer said in an exchange with Marijuana Moment that they are not interested in making their chamber seek the annual renewal of a temporary rider. Schumer seeks a long-term fix and says they will soon introduce legislation to eliminate federal cannabis prohibition.
And that was today's Buzz. Thanks for listening. For more cannabis news and insights from industry professionals and a place to discuss these stories and others, visit trichomes.com.
And be sure to catch up with all of our other cannabis industry-related podcasts like Hash It Out, Careers in Cannabis, or the International Cannabis Conversation wherever you get your podcasts. For TRICHOMES.com, I'm Devin Liao.
And I'm David Fortin. Have a great weekend.